Okay, so once you've gotten your carburettor off the bike and you've gotten that somewhere nice and clean, free of any rubbish, any dust, dirt, what have you, anywhere with a clean surface, anywhere bright to make it easier to work, and if you can work in a tray, either a plastic tray like a breakfast tray or at the very least on a sheet of newspaper, because no matter how well you think you've drained the carb, there'll always be a little bit of petrol leaking out there just to surprise you. And for this you'll need your array of jets, which usually come in a little packet. Depending on how posh they are, they'll either come in pre-packaged blister packs with fancy names, or they'll just come in little bags like this with the jet sizes just written on a piece of paper or on a card stuck onto the bag. You'll need an array of special tools, these being a crosshead screwdriver and a couple of flat blade screwdrivers for removal and replacement of the jets. Okay, first thing we do is we turn the carburettor upside down. So be aware that you're likely to get fuel leaking out while you're doing this. And we'll take our crosshead screwdriver and we'll remove the 3 crosshead screws, one there, and one there, which will remove the entire float bowl. Now be sure to use a good quality screwdriver, as the elements can attack these and they are prone to corrosion. Bad quality screwdrivers just going to chew the heads up and you'll wind up having to resort to drilling them out or using all manner of unpleasant techniques like hacking away at them with a pair of mole grips or something similar. Okay, you might have to give it a little bit of a wriggle just to loosen it off, and just lift it straight out like so. If you do it while it's all upside down, you can keep the screws in their respective places, as you can see there, and just saves losing them. And the drain screw I mentioned earlier is this one just here. That actually opens the valve there, allows your float bowl to drain. It's a good idea to do that before you take it apart, just to make sure that the float bowl is as empty as you can possibly manage. If you look under there, you'll see a gasket. Now this gasket can either be paper or it can be rubber. In this case it's a rubber gasket, it's reusable. Just make sure there's no rubbish on there, give it a quick check over before you reassemble, and put that to one side. Okay, now we'll look at the bottom of the carburettor here. We have the float, this portion here. Now these on some of the older carburettors can be made of copper, hollow copper that's brazed, and on the new ones they tend to be plastic. These can cause problems if they get damaged and they leak. Very, very rare these days with the modern materials. You used to get it with the older ones. Underneath it, just here, is the needle valve. Now this actually, what happens with this is the petrol flows down through here into the float bowl. As the float level pushes the float up, this closes the needle valve, stopping the flow of petrol, which maintains a specific level. Too much petrol getting in through a damaged needle valve or a punctured float can cause too rich a mixture and various problems. Okay, and down here, the bit that we're interested in today, just this bit here, is the main jet. This is where the needle of the slide travels down. Now, as the petrol gets sucked up through here, the needle varies the amount of fuel as it rises up through the throttle body. You need to make sure you've got a good fit in your main jet, good firm hold of your carburettor body, and just give it a little twist to break the seal there. It shouldn't be tight. If it's very, very tight, proceed with caution, because it's easy to break one side of this little nut off, and then you're in real trouble with the removal of it. They are basically hollow brass screws, so you do have to be very delicate with them. So you go ahead and unscrew that, and then it's simply, once unscrewed, just lift straight out, and that's your main jet there. And the kit that I received a 115 a 100 and a 105 main jet. And what you can do is experiment, see what gets you the best results. The 115, frankly, is just too big to be useful unless you're doing some really serious tuning with the exhaust inlet and the valves and what have you. In this case, I took a juggle between the 100 and the 105, and I wound up using the 100 main jet. Now the refitting of it is exactly the same as removal. Take the jet out of the packet first of all, have a good look at it, basically look down the bore and make sure that it's clear. You can see right through it, there are no obvious obstructions, and just check it for cleanliness and make sure it's clear. Don't poke bits of wire down these to clear them, you'll damage them. It's soft metal, it's brass. Don't blow down them because there may be particles in your mouth that can actually get stuck in there. If you have to blow them through, use a compressed air line if for any reason you need to. To refit, you get the carburettor, you locate that in there, and you screw it in by hand. So obviously in this case I'm just refitting the jet that I took out. What you'd be doing is replacing it with one of the jets that you got in your kit. So you screw that in by hand until it's tight. You take your screwdriver, place it in the slot, make sure it's a good firm fit, and you just nip it tight. Quite literally, just nip it. No more than that. It doesn't need to be wrenched in there. You don't need it too tight. It just needs to be tight enough so that you can't actually remove it by hand. From this point, we refit the float bowl. Make sure that all the screws and their associated spring washers are still fitted, and you fit that on just as you took it off, just seating it down. Give it a little wiggle if need be, just to make sure it seats properly, and then just nip up the screws. Now, as with anything that has several screws to hold it flat to a mating surface with a gasket, you should really just tighten them as evenly as possible. And obviously, because we don't have 3 or 4 arms, and therefore we can't tighten 3 or 4 screws simultaneously, that's a case of tighten the screws down until you feel them all pinch, and then just nip down one, nip down the other, and nip down the other. Just common sense. Just try and keep it as flat as possible. Just make sure that that's mated properly and there are no problems. At this point we can go ahead and stick the carburettor straight back onto the bike. And at that point you'd ideally need to check the mixture. Now in my case, if you see my Gunson colour tune videos, you'll see that I'm able to do that with the Gunson colour tune threaded into the spark plug hole, and I can adjust that mixture using this little screw here, which is the mixture screw. Now a rough guide, if you don't have a colour tune, is you can do this kind of by ear, as it were, or by sight to be more accurate. And if you screw in this adjustment screw until it bottoms out, it's spring loaded, so the spring will actually hold it out as you unscrew it. So screw it in until it bottoms out. Don't be rough because it's got a rounded base. It can be damaged easily, and it will adjust. It will make the mixture irregular if you damage it. So screw it in gently until it bottoms out. Turn it out to about a turn, or maybe a turn and a half. If you turn it in, just count the number of turns in that it's going, and you'll see how far out it is already. Base that on your initial setting. What you then need to do is give your spark plug a clean, fit everything back together, and go for a run with the bike as that stands. See how it performs, give it a really good run, a good 10 sort of 15 mile run. Come back and whip out the spark plug, have a look at the colour of it. Refer to your good old Haynes book for any petrol engine vehicle, and look at the spark plug colour guide. You can also find that online. Base that, the colour of your spark plug, against the rich or lean running pictures or normal running pictures in your Haynes manual, and then this is a good base to start from. If it's looking like it's running a little bit lean, turn your mixture screw out by a quarter of a turn to a half a turn, just small amounts at a time, and then go and do the same again. And basically, if you do this, once you think you've got a setting that's somewhere about right, leave it for a couple of days and just run about on it nice and steady, nothing too heavy on the throttle just in case it is too lean. And then take the plug out, check again. If the plug's looking normal, it's looking like a normal colour burn, then the chances are you're okay.